Israel Update with Gadi Tao and Mike Duran. Hello and welcome to Tablet's Israel Update. It's the 18th of September 2024. It's been 348 days since this war began, and it's a Wednesday now. We recorded on Tuesday, as we should have, after Mike was absent for a long time. And right after I finished editing the episode, we realized it was no longer relevant because the beepers of some 3,000 Hezbollah operatives simultaneously, by sheer accident, all exploded, and everything was turned on its head. I'm Gadi Tao in Tel Aviv. The producer of this show is Yaakov Wilner, and Mike Duran himself is once again in an undisclosed location.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
When did the beepers catch you? I mean, when did you get the message?
I got the message at 3:30 in the afternoon on your time, 3:30 in the afternoon your time yesterday.
And everyone here thought, Amit Segal's first push. Amit Segal, if you don't know, is Mike's favorite Israeli journalist. He has a very dependable Telegram channel that many Israelis follow. And his first tweet, his first message on the Telegram was, "Is it beginning?" And everyone was holding their breath in anticipation of a large-scale invasion of Lebanon, because we all figured that if we are if whoever did it neutralizes the whole communication system of the whole of Hezbollah and disrupting the chain of command, it must be the beginning of the war, where, alas, it wasn't. So, Mike, first the headlines, and then we'll discuss why, what, and the timing.
Okay, so look, you've already told us that 11 Hezbollah operatives were killed and thousands others were wounded when Hezbollah-issued pagers exploded nearly simultaneously yesterday afternoon in Lebanon. The pagers were reportedly detonated briefly after a preliminary text message was received on the devices, prompting many of the people to be holding them in their hands at the time of the blast. The Iranian ambassador to Lebanon was also wounded in one of his eyes, perhaps in both, actually. Hezbollah, Lebanon, and Iran all accused Israel of being behind the attack. No Israeli officials have commented on the issue. And on a second item, Gadi, Prime Minister Netanyahu is reportedly considering firing Defense Minister Gallant and replacing him with former rival Gideon Sa'ar. Such a move would remove the current tension over the Philadelphia corridor, amongst other issues within the government, as well as give Netanyahu's coalition greater stability. On Sunday, September 15th, the Houthis in Yemen launched a surface-to-surface missile towards central Israel, triggering rocket sirens in some of the most populated areas of the country. And finally, Amos Hochstein visited Israel on Monday. Amos Hochstein, Gadi, is President Biden's envoy for Lebanon. He hoped to lower tensions between Israel and Hezbollah on the northern border. I would say that his mission failed. To you, Gadi.
Yeah, but one thing about Hochstein is reportedly the Minister of Security, often referred to as the Minister of Defense.
I refuse to call him the Minister of Security. I refuse.
That's what we call him in Hebrew. I'm Israeli. And I sometimes fail. I sometimes forget. But he said to Amos Hochstein that there is no solution other than a military operation in the north. Yes. This can be an attempt by Gallant to try to win his way back into the good favors, into the good graces.
The good books, the good graces, yeah.
The good books or graces of Netanyahu. He's now making more hawkish sounds. That may be the reason.
Well, also, when I first heard that quote, it was before the pagers exploded. Afterwards, it takes on a different
meaning.
Yeah.
It came before the beepers exploded, and I rushed after we did ours, and after I learned that we can't post our our episode, I went to Channel 14. They did what they do usually on such occasions, and they opened like a rolling studio of live coverage. And at first, the atmosphere was cocky, and then people began to say, "What's going on? Why is nothing happening?" Then came the beepers of all those connected to the all those reporters whose job it is to cover the army, the security ministry, or the Ministry of Defense, or politics in general, started getting messages saying Israel did not take responsibility for this. And then along comes to the studio Yaakov Bardugo, who is a very prominent political commentator, also has good sources in the Prime Minister's office, and with what was a surprisingly straight face, he said, this operation probably conducted by Micronesia, Denmark, or I forget what other Scandinavian country he had. And they all, they made a face saying there's a point why it seemed clear that they're making a point of the fact that Israel is not taking responsibility. And the assumption was that there was an operation, that this was supposed to begin, and then came enormous international pressure. International pressure, as you know, Mike, means American pressure. And the operation was put on hold. This is all speculation, right? We're not saying this is what happened. The speculation was in the studio that the Americans put an enormous amount of pressure, and now we needed Hezbollah to respond in order to have legitimacy to begin a larger operation, because then we would be just striking back. So that was what was going on among Israeli pundits at 6 o'clock local time, which is 3 hours after we learned about the beepers. It was just the information was coming in that we learned how huge this operation is. I might add, Mike, before I pass it over to you, that this is unprecedented. We call it, how do you say sikul memukad?
Targeted killing or targeted assassin, targeted elimination.
Oh, that's more like the Hebrew, because it's more sterile. It is the first mass targeted elimination. And if you think of it,
right,
it's pretty amazing. It's people, Hezbollah operatives were everywhere in Beirut and other places in Lebanon, and wherever they were, the operation targeted only them. So it was tactically amazingly impressive. And then we all said, why is it strategically squandered? Why don't we hit Hezbollah now, when their chain of command is in total disarray? Many of their operatives are out of functioning, and their communication system is badly disrupted.
Well, a couple of thoughts. I agree with you. It is amazing. This is the first mass targeted killing or mass elimination in history. It's amazingly successful operation from a technical point of view. It's great to have your enemy choose your targets for you. So you don't even have to do the targeting; they just do it for you. It's three intelligence operations in one, which is also amazing. I mean, you first of all have to identify and map out the entire supply chain of Hezbollah. Then you have to get in control of these beepers and put the explosive in them, and then you have to trigger it, which is all of it. For all of that to have worked is really amazing. I mean, this is one for the history books. It really is something out of a movie, not something that you think really happens in real life. It also completely foils among the beautiful aspects of this operation is it foils Hezbollah's human shield strategy, or Iran's human shield strategy, because you hit all of these. You hit only or almost only. There were a few civilians killed. I understand a girl was killed who may have had.
They immediately emphasize that.
Oh yes, of course. But I mean, really, it almost exclusively Hezbollah operatives, and behind the lines and in civilian areas. So it completely foils all of their strategies. They must be enormously discombobulated. One other thought here, Gadi, which is that I read a report somewhere which said that these were originally purchased by Iran and then distributed to Hezbollah. And that's why you have the Iranian ambassador, who, by the way, is an IRGC. All the Iranian ambassadors in the Arab world are IRGC operatives. You had people in Damascus who were killed or wounded, and possibly in Iran itself. So among the many wonderful qualities that this operation has is that it sows distrust between Hezbollah and Iran. The Lebanese Hezbollah cannot trust the material it's getting from Iran because Israel has so deeply penetrated all of the IRGC systems. It's really remarkable.
There was talk in the studio also about the technical aspects, so there are a few experts. And at first, speculation was floated that whoever did it, Micronesia apparently, found a way. Denmark is bigger than Micronesia and richer. That they found a way to get into the software of the beeper and cause it to go into a loop, which then heated it, which then caused a lithium battery to explode. And that was ruled out because that's not something that could be timed so precisely. So apparently...
Also, I saw people who know about these things discussing them, and lithium batteries apparently don't really explode. They just kind of heat up. So if you really want the explosion, you need a military grade explosive.
And there was 20 grams. This is what is now the common wisdom about it. About 20 grams in every beeper. So these things were manufactured somewhere, then brought to Iran or many manufactured in Iran, and somewhere along the way, in each one of them, 20 grams of explosives were planted. And we're talking about thousands of beepers, and the fact that this was not discovered is amazing. I don't know how Denmark could have found.
They're very good those days.
Plant this in all the beepers, and also I can't fathom why. But having done that, there's also, this is Nadav Eyal pointed out, and I think he's right. It occurred to me too, that the timing, everybody thought that the timing was the announcement of a major military invasion of Lebanon, because it makes total sense that if you have that capability, you don't just waste it on a stunt or on the damage, the local damage it creates, because it gives you such a rare opportunity when the enemy is completely off balance, also psychologically, but also in terms of its chain of command and its ability to function. And what Nadav Eyal said was that possibly the timing had to do with the danger of disclosure. Because this is you have 3,000 beepers, and it's enough that one of them goes to the repair shop in order for someone to open that and said, what are 20 grams of plastic explosives doing in your beeper that would cause Hezbollah to get rid of all the beepers within an hour, probably through a message to the beepers. But otherwise, Mike, why do you think the IDF is not taking advantage of the situation right now?
I'll answer that question in a second, but let me read you something amusing first, may I?
Of course.
Which is my friend Ragıp Soylu, who is a Turkish journalist, and he's a very, very good journalist, by the way, has tweets this morning that the Apollo pagers that were delivered to Hezbollah were apparently produced by a Hungarian company, BAC Consulting, which is located in the beautiful city of Budapest. And let me tell you, Budapest is beautiful. And so let me read you. He has here on his Twitter feed, a little blurb from BAC Consulting, and it says, BAC Consulting is located in the beautiful city of Budapest, merging the cultural background, energy, and beauty of the Mediterranean area with that of Central East Europe of its founder. These roots help us to appreciate different perspectives and have distinct principles such as authenticity, freedom, and happiness. By translating what Gustav Jung stated on human life, quote, every human life contains a potential. If that potential is not fulfilled, then that life was wasted. Our mission is to extract unicity. I've never heard that word before. Unicity from entrepreneurs and organizations. We work internationally as agents of change with a network of consultants who put their knowledge, experience, and humanity into our projects.
Thank you.
Connecting an authentic journey.
I am sorely tempted to say that the Hungarians are on our side because I'm often accused of being pro-Hungarian. And here Hungary was portrayed as the basin of the origin of evil in the days of judicial reform, that Orban is a half fascist on the way to a dictatorship, all of which is not true, but it was used here in that way, and so Hungary has a bad rap here. And Hungary is really Israel's best friend in the European Union, so much so that it's been complaining, saying, we can't block alone all the decisions against you. You need to find some people to share the burden with us because it's beginning to look strange. I mean, it's beginning to look, as if something indecent is going on. And so the Hungarians are really on our side, and they really love us. But also the Hungarian, not long ago, hosted Ahmadinejad in a university in Budapest, I think. And they are, as we know, they are in a different position, uncomfortable in the West vis-a-vis Putin and vis-a-vis Iran too.
Also Xi Jinping, they also talk to Xi Jinping.
Yeah.
They get a lot of criticism in Washington for their position on Ukraine, but also their ties with China.
So I don't think that the Hungarians actively participated in this. I mean, Micronesia and Denmark are, I suspect, more than I suspect Hungary on this issue. But Mike, you did not answer my question. Why is the IDF not taking advantage of the situation right now?
I interpret this. Of course, I don't know. I don't know if this was part. It does kind of feel like the beginning of something else, but I just interpret it like I have been interpreting all of the recent more aggressive steps by Israel, such as killing Hania in Tehran, killing Fuad Shukr in Beirut, carrying out the attack on Hudaydah. These are, as I see it, it's all a response to April 14, when Iran showed that it had escalation dominance over the Israelis. The Israelis were put in a position of having to react to Iranian initiatives, and they were very much constrained by the Americans. And clearly, a decision was made in Jerusalem to turn this around, to start taking some initiative, to send a message to Tehran and to Washington that Israel was going to be the one who was going to establish escalation dominance. So I see this as a reassertion of escalation dominance rather than the beginning of a conflict. I think it's worth pointing out that that the Houthis launched this. Well, we put it in the news. They launched this missile on Sunday. I don't believe that was the trigger for doing it, but that could have, if that ballistic missile had hit Tel Aviv, then you would have had the beginning of a major war. So the two sides, the two sides are trading blows back and forth. The Israelis are very much concerned about the restraints the Americans have put on them. The Americans have enormous levers of influence over Israel, including controlling the interceptors. The Israelis don't have enough interceptors in their Iron Dome to knock out all of the rockets and missiles that will come their way if there is an all-out war. So the Israelis are trying to establish escalation dominance, but also treading carefully, not to get too at odds with the Americans. Too much at odds with the Americans.
So it might have been just an opportunistic timing because of some other consideration. It became possible and it was done.
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't know. But I doubt. What I strongly doubt here is that there was a major plan to really escalate across the board by the Israelis. I think the Israelis are doing this in a gradual fashion, provoking like in boxing. This is a boxer that's jabbing his opponent. The Israelis are jabbing Iran and Hezbollah in the hopes of provoking them so that they can hit them even harder. But they're being very careful not to go beyond the jab.
Well, we will see where that leads, because as I've been saying repeatedly, a coalition in Israel cannot forever survive with the North evacuated and the Nazis on our border. At one point or another, the political calculation will trump everything else, because the Israeli electorate is going to punish severely a government that will allow what is basically an occupation of a large swath of land of Israel. That has never happened in the history of Israel. We have lost a little territory around Gush. No, it's not Gush Etzion in the year of 48. But ever since the borders of the state were established, we never lost territory of Israel proper. The invasion on Yom Kippur was repelled in the north, and in the on the southern border, what was occupied was a narrow strip of Sinai, which is very far from the border of Green Line Israel, or the international border of Israel. And also, Mike, we should note that all this came in a strange political timing, because it seemed like, and this is what we dedicated our whole show to yesterday, that Prime Minister Netanyahu was gearing towards firing Gallant. So why don't you first explain why this came about, and then I'll say something about the attempt to replace him with Gideon Sa'ar, whom maybe should be introduced in more detail to our viewers and listeners.
I'll do that. 1 second. I was just looking. I can't find it right here, but I saw this morning that there was a new poll in Israel, maybe by Channel 13. I'm not sure. This just reinforces what you were saying. A large percentage, a majority of Israelis are in favor of a major escalation against Hezbollah, which is really striking. That I suspect that
65%, according to, where is this poll? This is from yesterday, the המחקר למחקרי ביטחון לאומי. Is this INSS in Hebrew? It might be INSS. And this poll says that 65% of the Israelis believe that Tzahal will
I think that's IDI, actually, isn't it? Anyway, isn't that IDI that does this? I'm not sure, though.
You mean the Israeli Democratic Institute? No, it isn't.
Yeah, they don't do these. Anyway, that's very, very interesting. Why do you want me to talk about Sa'ar? You should talk about Sa'ar.
About Sa'ar, I will talk, but I thought you would mention the Philadelphia corridor controversy. And the thing is that
you want me to go ahead.
Because there's actually good reasons to refer Gallant to you, because he is considered the representative of the American administration within the cabinet after Benny Gantz.
And actually, when the news broke that Netanyahu, I think he's denied it actually, but anyway, these are not believable denials. When news broke that Netanyahu was going to replace Gallant with Sa'ar, an American official came out and said, "Why would you replace your defense minister in the middle of a war? What a mistake!" And this was an anonymous official. And can you guess who this anonymous official leaked this information to or gave this interview to?
Barak Ravid.
Barak Ravid, exactly. Barak Ravid, the
It could have been
representative.
Thomas Friedman, though.
No, Thomas
Ravid.
Friedman is who the administration talks to American Jews through. Thomas Friedman. Israelis, they talk to Barak Ravid through him.
But I suspect it works the opposite way. Barak Ravid comes with the ideas for the stories. He says, he goes to them and he says, look, this is a vulnerability. Now find me an official whom I can
give me a quote
through in order to apply pressure on Israel from without. And then Benny Gantz tweeted that this is cynical petty politics. And Benny Gantz was the Minister of Defense, and he left office in the middle of the war for politics. And now he's preaching to Netanyahu that he can't replace his Minister of Defense because it's tiny politics all around. Of course, Yair Lapid and everybody now is suddenly mamlachtiyim. Everybody now became statists, if you prefer that translation to mamlachtiyim. So the idea was, anyway, even as I was sitting yesterday in the studio and I was listening, in Yaakov Bardugo, as I said, a very central, prominent pundit, also with good connections to the Prime Minister's office, said, I want to emphasize that if this is the beginning of the war, it is probably not possible that Yoav Gallant will stay in his office because the Prime Minister and his Minister of Security are not getting along and cannot run a war together. And so this is, if the plan was to fire Gallant, and then the war came in, and then Denmark stepped in with his stunt and confused everything, then someone in the Prime Minister's office apparently still was making the point that this will not change the plans, or else Yaakov Bardugo's sources have failed him, which I don't think happens.
Your impression is that this switch is going to happen?
I don't know if the switch is going to be Sar, because there are strange tweets from Sar now that is not clear whether, I don't remember what it is that he denied some piece of information about the negotiations, but it does have the smell that maybe Sar is not going to be the man after all. But this is what seems likely, and this is also what makes political sense if you are willing, as Netanyahu is famously willing to do, put aside everything personal. Yesterday's total enemy can be today's BFF. There's no sentiments. It's, you know,
why don't you give us a quick sketch of the relations between Sar and Netanyahu? Because
so Sar saw himself for many years the heir apparent. That's the key to understanding this whole story. Sar is a longtime Likudnik of the young generation, effective, yuppie, friends with Tel Avivians.
His wife is a TV star.
A TV star?
Is she not a TV personality?
Oh, his wife is. His wife is also a news anchor, which caused a lot of talk about the objectivity of coverage when he was a central a contender for head of the Likud. Or I don't know when they became a couple, but anyway, Sar rose through the ranks, beginning with the Likud student organization at Hebrew University, where I teach to this day. And then he rose through the ranks and he became he became Minister of Education, which is a very prominent portfolio in Israel. And then after rising through the ranks all the way up to the first five in Likud, he encountered accusations of sexual misconduct. Specifically of having sexual relations with underlings as a minister. The case was closed, but he decided to leave politics in 2014. And rumors were circulating that the closing of the case was not the last that we would hear of it, and the reason for his departure is some attempt to prevent further scandals. I want to emphasize that these are rumors. The official case was closed by the police. After 3 years in absentia, Sar returned in 2017, and I think it was then that he became Minister of the Interior. And then came, and he was a Bibi loyalist the whole time. And then in 2020, after he reached the 5th or the 6th place in the Likud primaries, this is very high up. There was an election in 2020, and Netanyahu did not give him any major portfolio, and offered him instead the position of a ambassador to the UN. Now, ambassador in the UN is a kind of thing. It's a clear attempt to keep you away from power while giving you some official aura of importance, because
the Abba Iban solution. Send the guy.
The Abba solution that push someone far outside to somewhere where it's great fun to be, but where you don't get in the way. And Sar was furious, and he left Likud and created a new party called.
And he clearly thought that he had a good shot at becoming the like Bennett. Like Avigdor Lieberman, like so many others. Like, how many have there been? He thought he could become the next prime minister after Netanyahu.
Yeah, he thought he could either defeat or inherit Netanyahu's position. So he created this new party, Tikva Chadasha, a New Hope, which was interesting because he declared that this is liberal secular conservatism, that he's clearly on the right, yet he committed to not sitting in the same coalition with Benjamin Netanyahu, which sounds paradoxical, and indeed it was, because he in the next election, Tikva Chadasha, headed by Gideon Sa'ar, won 6 seats in the parliament. I have to put an asterisk here and say that their platform, which was also published in a book called Sichot al Haderech, Conversations on the Road with Gideon Sa'ar, as if there's a road in Israel, when you go on a campaign trail. It's 60 minutes to Jerusalem with Gideon Sa'ar. And it was indeed a very short book, Mike, as you would expect. And in it, there was a very clear program for judicial reform, which I think is at least as radical as Yariv Levin's. So he took a clear stand.
Yariv Levin, the current justice minister, whose judicial reform program caused all of this controversy. Sar was more Yariv Levin than Yariv Levin.
Yeah, so the plot thickens now because the story becomes complicated, and I want you to note this important fact that the platform of Tikva Chadasha included a plan for a judicial overhaul, as now detractors say. I'm just saying that it was no less thorough than the one that was just defeated, and so he ran on that platform. He won 6 seats, and he, along with Naftali Bennett, who also ran a party on the right. By the way, there was Naftali Bennett signed a paper on live television saying that he would not sit in the same government with Yair Lapid. And he lied, he deliberately lied on TV.
It's not a lie. It's not a lie. It's a commitment. And every sincere Israeli political commitment has a sell-by date. That's all.
Well, sincere, my interpretation, I'm not alone here, is that this was not at all sincere. This was a plan to steal votes from the right-wing bloc in order to give them to the left-wing bloc. And this is what he did with Gideon Sa'ar's help. Gideon Sa'ar and Naftali Bennett together.
You're very cynical.
Very cynical, but not as cynical as Naftali Bennett and Gideon Sa'ar. They blocked the possibility that although right-wing parties had a majority, they blocked the possibility of a right-wing coalition. They had a plurality. They had half the parliament and the the left had to lean on the anti-Zionist Arab parties in order to form a coalition. And so Gideon Sa'ar, along with Naftali Bennett, delivered the premiership to the left, along with the anti-Zionist Arabs, in order to prevent Netanyahu from taking his seat. And now comes the twist in the story. Gideon Sa'ar became the Minister of Justice. He
carried out a judicial reform in keeping with his principles, right?
And
I just forgot about that.
He became the Minister of Justice and protected the judicial oligarchy from.
No, this can't be because he published talks on the road where he said he was going to carry out a major judicial overhaul.
Apparently, that was not a one-way street. So the road he was traveling on, or else it was a dead end, because he now became the Minister of Justice and appointed a radical judicial activist for the Attorney General, which is like the Praetorian Guard of the Supreme Court, because in this way they also control the prosecution in Israel. And people began to speculate that the problem is that the cases that caused Sa'ar to quit in 2014 were somehow possibly alive somewhere.
Held in abeyance. Held as they were a sword over his head.
Yes, indeed. And there were some tweets saying that the Attorney General or the state attorney is just holding Gideon Sa'ar by the throat, to which I tweeted that whoever thinks that the Attorney General is holding Gideon Sa'ar by the throat knows nothing at all about human anatomy. And so Gideon Sa'ar became very friendly.
Because the suggestion here was that there was inappropriate sexual behavior, right?
That's originally.
Just in case everyone wasn't following all the ins and outs of your story, I'm reminding them that there was.
Yeah, so it's built like a screenplay, right? The gun one is shooting at in the third act. So, and I emphasize, these are speculations. The speculations were that Gideon Sa'ar has completely abandoned his idea of a reform because he now, as Minister of Justice, he was in a position to protect the judiciary, the judicial oligarchy, the Israeli juristocracy, our imperial Supreme Court by some kind of clandestine quid pro quo. So these he's much more interesting now. The story is much more interesting than I understood, because I have to say, in Israeli politics, I find him to be one of the most boring people. When he talks, my eyelids get heavy. I start snoozing, which is not true for, say, Yair Lapid, whom you don't like. I really enjoy listening to Yair Lapid because I never know what's going to come out of his mouth. And but Gideon Sa'ar is just so boring. Am I wrong? That was a very good description of Lapid, but Sa'ar is not B2C. Sa'ar is B2B. Sa'ar is a politician's politician. He is super smart, extremely adept at political intrigue, and very, very bold. And he can, he can topple a government. And he just as he left Likud, he can now come back. But there is an epilogue to the story. The epilogue is that after the fall of the Lapid and Bennett government, he teamed up with Benny Gantz for the National Unity Party. And then when Gantz joined the cabinet in the beginning of the war, Gideon Sa'ar was not granted a place in the war cabinet, which is a smaller forum, and therefore refused to join the government. Now Benny Gantz left, and Gideon Sa'ar may be on the verge of entering the cabinet that he was ostracized from. And I might add in the margins of this that yesterday, and I did this on my little update on our channel yesterday, a new forum was created for running the war. And in this forum, Gallant is going to be in a clear minority. There was a war cabinet when Gallant, Eisenkot, and Gantz, all considered American lackeys, were a majority in the cabinet against Netanyahu and Dron Dermer, who were the minority. And that forum was very uncomfortable for Netanyahu. And ever since, he moved decision-making to the full cabinet, where Gallant is in the minority. And now, apparently, if this move will be implemented and Saar will replace Gallant, then possibly we will have a new war cabinet, because Saar is considered a hawk on things like the Philadelphia corridor, the hostage deal, the war in Lebanon, and so forth.
It looks like it'll put Netanyahu in a position to see out his term to 2026. I mean, right now, all of the pressure that was building around Netanyahu was around this issue of a hostage for prisoner deal, which appears to have just died. I don't see any chance of it in the near future. Nobody's talking about it. The Americans are actually talking about trying to put together a whole new deal, that will be more attractive to Sinwar. And in the meantime, the center of gravity in the conflict seems to be moving from Gaza up north, as we're seeing. So it looks to me like Netanyahu's position is getting a lot stronger rather than weaker. Do you agree with that?
I think so, and this is why the anti-Netanyahu crowd is going wild, and it really, it completely eroded standards here. We'll talk when we get to the dumbest take on the news about the physical attack on Itamar Ben-Gvir, which the whole press is portraying now as legitimate. But let me read you some messages that Geula Even, Gidon Saar's television anchor wife, is getting from her. I don't know. These are people on her WhatsApp, apparently. If your husband becomes a minister of security, this is going to be a huge hit to public confidence. We will shame you wherever you go. You will be muktzim. You will be ostracized forever in the public sphere. The state is collapsing, and you are doing a political stunt. We will not forget, we will not forgive, and we will take care that you and your children will receive constant public shaming wherever you go. So another one says,
she published these, obviously.
This Amit Segal published them, and I guess he might have gotten them from Geula Even. I don't follow her Telegram, so I don't know. But there are other messages like this, and this was normalized during the struggle over the reform. Some ministers in Netanyahu cabinets, the left doesn't, the radical left doesn't think that the law applies to them, and the press agrees, and also the law enforcement agrees. So under the houses of some ministers, there is a constant band of what do you call the horns that you can have like on a spray bottle that sound like a truck?
Oh yeah, I don't know what those are called.
Bullhorns. Bullhorns is megaphones. Yeah. But anyway, there is an attempt to constantly disrupt the private lives of people who are doing or carrying out initiatives that the radical left doesn't like. So this is a serious threat. These people actually end up doing these things.
So do you want to tell us about the physical attack on Ben-Gvir?
Why don't we first refer to our new segment of responses to questions and comments by our listeners? Or before we go there, Mike, in the episode that we had the junk, we came up with the amazing idea that we will look for a slogan for our program.
Oh, right. Yeah, we need a slogan. Well, you had an idea already.
I had an idea. I said, Israel Update, we cut through the media bias for you. I think that's an absolutely amazing slogan. But if you have better ideas, Mike, you or any of our viewers or listeners, please post them in the comments.
I think our slogan, it should be Israel Update, Sex and Chocolate. Because I want to try to widen our appeal.
I don't know a lot about advertising, but I think that in the long run, if you don't deliver, then there's a problem. So unless I'll do the chocolate part if you like.
Yeah, no. Okay. You got me there. You got me there. I won't be.
And now I have to tell the story about Canada, but I'm not sure it will make you laugh again because yesterday you did. But now you know the point. So Canada had a competition for a slogan. They wanted something like "As American as apple pie." So people, as American as maple tree, as Canadian as maple trees, maybe as Canadian as, and at least they have self-deprecating humor because the slogan that won was as Canadian as possible under the circumstances, which I think is
I found it funny again. I forgot it already. So,
and I think it goes right to the core of Canadian dilemmas about their identities near the United States. So, any comments you'd like to mention?
Yeah, let's see. We got a couple here. Here, right to the point.
I'm guessing the first one is going to be a shot at me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Mike.
No, it's not. It's not.
No, that's
no. I know that you got a little thin-skinned last time we brought up. Last time I called attention to the legion of followers you have that support you and attack me for not giving you enough time to talk. Anyway, Ellie Solomon 8741 says, "Come on, fellas, your style is too loose and folksy. The subject matter warrants a little more, meaning a little more seriousness. Sorry to be a critic. I do appreciate your content." We get this a fair amount, actually, Gadi. There are people who do not appreciate your sense of humor or our sense of humor. So listen, here's my feeling about this. I don't think that we are simply doing a public service, cutting through the media bias. This is an actual real conversation I'm having with you once a week, and I look forward to it because it's a real conversation. And so you get our sense of humor, such as it is. I find these talks amusing. Now, not everyone is going to, and I think I would just say to Ellie Solomon, either grin and bear it, or maybe we're not your cup of tea. That's my attitude. I don't want to change this. I want to have the humorous banter, even if other people don't find it amusing.
I don't know about Ellie, but humor is one of those things that if you don't have a sense of humor, then jokes bore you. And there's a famous quote from Ben Gurion, which you've heard from me. I heard it from Meir Payil, the historian who was also part of Mapai, who once said to Ben Gurion, your serious drawback is that you have no sense of humor. And Ben Gurion demonstrated that he hadn't, because he said, "Why are you saying that? Tell me a joke and see that I laugh." And so some people are not going to like our humor.
There's another. There's another Ben Gurion story that's similar, which I know I've told you before. Maybe I've even said here, where some journalist wrote that one of his weaknesses was that he had no capacity for small talk, and so he went up to the guy at a reception and he said, "Nu daber." It's like, so
go on, talk.
Go on, talk.
Yeah, there's an amazing portrait of Ben Gurion in Amos Oz's book, A Tale of Love and Darkness, where Ben Gurion called him to his office because he wrote something critical of Ben Gurion in Davar. So Amos Oz was in the army; he was a soldier.
Davar is the left-wing newspaper that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah,
and suddenly he gets a call, and Ben Gurion was also the minister of security, mind you, and he called him to his office. And so, he's a young soldier. So of course he came from Khulna, from his kibbutz. He hitchhiked from 4 a.m. in order to get in time to see the minister of security. And he said he never met a person with such intensity. He thought the glass of orange juice that Ben Gurion was holding would be crushed in his hand. And Ben Gurion gave him a lecture about Spinoza. That was what he wanted to do in the morning with this young soldier who wrote a letter complaining about the prime minister.
I read a lot of in Ben Gurion's diaries, and they are amazing. They are amazing because it's
because he cuts through the media bias.
He cuts through the media bias, but they're amazing because like the intensity and 10 o'clock, he's meeting with the representatives. I'm talking about during the 48 war from Hungary, and he talks to them about what's going on in Hungarian politics. 10:30, he's meeting with the leaders of the IDF. 11 o'clock, he's meeting a foreign diplomat. 11:30, he's talking with representatives from the United States. And he's incredibly aware of all the politics of these countries, what's going on globally, what's happening on the battlefield. You have to have incredible focus and intensity. Didn't spend any time like I do getting up in the morning thinking, does God love me? What is my purpose in life? He knew all along exactly what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, there are very few such leaders, such politicians on the world scene. He had a little country to run, but he was Churchillian in stature, although Churchill would have appreciated our sense of humor more than Ben-Gurion had he listened to our show, Mike. And yes. I have just one last remark on that is I think that apart from this being a conversation that both of us enjoy, and that's an important thing if you want to have a show in the long run, there's also a tendency to gloom and doom on the right. And it's so always true. The clock is always on 5 minutes to the end of the world. And so I think that maybe things are serious and maybe we are all going to hell, but if we are, let's not appear defeated already. And I think that part of the ability to get up in the morning and continue the fight of cutting through the media bias is if you have a little optimism and a little humor, and you can take things with a grain of salt. Jews have survived in this way for 2 millennia. And to end this humor segment, which is becoming long, I will risk another thing that I've told you, Mike, and made you laugh, but I don't know if would make you laugh again without the surprise, is that Israelis and Americans are very different on this. And Israelis are willing to laugh at almost anything, given a little time, even the atrocities. And so this is the Israeli ethos. This is how we cope with difficulty, by also being able to joke about it. And so an Israeli journalist, I think the story was told by Nachum Barnea, the prominent Israeli columnist, who came to the United States in the immediate aftermath of 9/11 and sat on a board meeting of an important newspaper. It may have been the Times. And there was another Israeli journalist. And the Israeli journalist, when there was a silence, he said, "I hear that Pan Am now have direct flight to your office." And a deathly silence ensued. Nobody thought that was funny, but that was so Israeli. It was just the Israeli thing to do. And that guy, poor guy, that must have been the end of his contacts with American journalists after that. Americans.
Oh, I just remembered. I once told a joke. I'm not going to tell you because I'll lose people's support. I told a joke to my father that was similarly heartless and had nothing to do with 9/11 or anything like that. But he was so disgusted with me, he didn't talk to me for the rest of the day. And my father had a great sense of humor too.
but you are. I find you to be an honorary Israeli. Maybe that is because you know Israel well and spent some years here as a young man. Maybe you. I always
had this problem. John Cleese said that the Americans can't distinguish between being grave and being serious. To be serious, you have to be very grave. And I always had this problem. All my girls I dated, they never understood. They thought I was serious when I was joking, and they thought I was joking when I was serious. So I married a foreigner in the end. I had to go because only the foreign ladies
understood you. Anything else that we want to address in the comments?
There's another one, which I don't have the guy's name here. We can do it really quickly. He chastised me. There's a guy on Rumble for my comments about Tucker Carlson and Martyr Maid. He said
Darryl Cooper, the crank anti-Semitic historian.
Yeah, he said that this guy said that I owed all Trump supporters an apology because I tarnished all Trump supporters with a brush of anti-Semitism. All I want to say is I don't think I did that. I didn't go back to check exactly how I put it. I myself am supporting Trump. So the fact of the matter is, Martin Maid and Tucker Carlson are on the MAGA end of the spectrum, and they are trying to develop a particular view of history that has this strong strain of anti-Semitism running through it. This is just a fact. We have, unfortunately, anti-Semitism on the right and on the left. I believe the left-wing anti-Semitism is the bigger threat to the country, but we have to call it where we see it, Gadi. And so I don't feel I owe Trump supporters an apology. I think that these guys are really, we need to be very clear about who they are and call them out for the scumbags that they are.
I agree, and I also agree that it's still a danger on the left, and that Jews and Israelis have become way too accustomed to denying anti-Semitism on the left, and they don't hear the extreme anti-Israeli positions that Kamala Harris and her ilk take, and they don't understand the danger. When she puts in charge of the as a liaison to the Jewish community, an ex-Israeli, everybody thinks, oh, that's wonderful. She's on our side. And then you discover that this is one of the guys who operates the sanctions against Israel, who pushed for sanctions against Israelis, and a move that is undermining Israel's sovereignty, not to mention that she is still in favor of an embargo on weapons on Israel in the middle of a war. Israelis who understand what's going on in American politics are speaking of a Kamala Harris term as an existential danger a real danger to the existence of the state of Israel, because 4 more years of appeasement towards Iran and the Middle East would be a completely different place. And it's not clear that Israel could survive in an environment that is so hostile when it is also equipped with nuclear arms. Okay, I can't solicit your comments on that, Mike, because you're almost out of time, and we have to go to the dumbest take. Did you use the time allotted to you since yesterday to come up with a dumb take, Mike?
I did, yes, I did. Are you surprised? Oh, you're surprised, aren't you?
I am surprised.
Yeah.
I was just going to...
Yeah, you were just getting ready to chastise me. I know you were. I know, but no.
Smart move.
You should apologize to me now.
I am.
Oh, shoot, now I can't find it.
See?
Hold on. I'm gonna find it. You go ahead and start talking about your dumb mistake, and then I'll get mine.
Okay.
I got it.
So my dumb mistake is it has to do with the attack on Ben Gvir. There's this woman called Noah who saw Ben Gvir on the beach. Apparently, he was with his entourage in Tel Aviv on the promenade, and they came down to the narrow strip of sand, him in full office clothes, with apparently his kids were there or something, and they wanted to go down to the water. And she came up to him, this woman, and made you told me yesterday there's no such thing as a sandball, but and it's certainly not a snowball, but she made a ball of wet sand and threw it at the minister, and it hit him. This is a physical attack on a cabinet minister. And of course she was arrested. And then an outcry came from the whole of the left and the mainstream press that this is the Ben Gvir police, that it's become a political police used against free speech and other things, as if free speech protected the right to physically attack a minister. Why is this on my dumb mistake list? Because this woman, Noah, the attacker, her mother, tweeted after she was released from custody, I think after a night or so, tweeted that thank God, finally Noah has returned home. And then Tamir Morag, who is the witty political commentator of Channel 14, said that henceforth probably the phrase Noah has returned home will no longer refer to Noah Argamani, who just spent her time in a summer camp with Hamas, and will now refer to poor, heroic Jeanne d'Arc, he didn't say Jeanne d'Arc, Noah, who attacked physically a minister, and these leftists don't think that she should pay. I'll just mention at the end of this comment that when anyone attacks someone on the left, when someone threw a shoe at a judge, they got 3 years in prison. When someone said to Avichai Mandelblit, who was then ordering to indict Netanyahu, a neighbor of his, who was a religious woman on Shabbat, passed by him and said, Parashat Mishpatim Busha, it's the Torah portion that has to do with laws that she mentioned, and she said shame. So Parashat Mishpatim, shame. She was arrested on a Saturday. She's a religious woman and brought to a police station for just talking. So apparently just whispering something that irritates the left is forbidden, while physically attacking those that the left hates is self-evidently the right thing to do. Yep. Your dumb mistake, Mike.
Okay, my dumb mistake is from Heidi Matthews. I never heard of her before. This is on Twitter. She's a Harvard Law School grad, and she teaches law at York University, which is in Toronto. And she responded to the pager attacks, the pager operation yesterday, which, by the way, is being called on Twitter Operation Below the Belt. I kind of like that.
Amit Segal started that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
so she says, if converting personal communications devices into IEDs isn't an act of terrorism, then I don't know what is. And there's a lot of that on, I just picked her. There's a ton of that, of course, on Twitter, even from people who seemingly serious professions like teaching law at the university. And I just find it incredibly ridiculous, Gadi, because this is the most targeted of targeted attacks. I'm sure that there were some people who are innocent who were damaged in this, but there cannot be an operation that was more where damage to people other than the combatants was more carefully prevented. So Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. It started to open up attacks against Israel on October 8th when it wasn't provoked. Israel is fighting back, and it's fighting back in the most moral way possible. Still not good enough for these people. It's incredibly stupid.
Yeah, our survival is apparently immoral in the eyes of many. So I'll end, Mike, with saying on a joke that I had yesterday on live TV and was not appreciated by the panel. I said that this operation has targeted demography, and everyone looked at me in silence. And then I explained, and then I say, "Oh God, we understood what you mean." So that's it. That's it from us for today. Mike, are you going to be in the United States next Tuesday? No, you're not. You're traveling.
I know. I am going to be in the United States, but I don't think I'm going to be in Washington D.C. Don't think I'm going to be in Washington.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll see. I might be able to do it early in the morning on Tuesday.
Excellent. Thanks for listening in. Make sure you have subscribed to one of our channels on Rumble, on YouTube, or you get our alerts from the tablet site where you can find us in audio.
Subscribe and like it too.
Subscribe and like. Yeah, we heard that liking is also important for the algorithm. So support us by liking. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again next year.
Maybe that will be our slogan.
Like us?
No, supporting the algorithm.